Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Swarup Murli, and I'm joined today by our session speaker, Anand Bagmar. This event is presented by Applitools. Applitools offers the industry's next generation test automation platform powered by visual AI. Applitools ICE was the first market solution to replicate the human eye and automatically spot functional and visual bugs with every release. Now, with UltraFast Grid, Centra, and the Execution Cloud, nearly everyone in the organization is seamlessly integrated into the testing process, from design, development, QA, operation, marketing, and other product teams. Our speaker today is Anand Bagmar. Anand is a software quality evangelist and a solution architect here at Applitools. He has more than 20 years of experience in the software testing field. He is passionate about shipping quality products and specializes in quality strategy and execution. A contributor to the Selenium project, he has built a number of open source tools related to software testing and regularly speaks and writes on testing related topics. When we get underway, please post your questions for Anand in the Q&A tab and use the chat tab for general comments and dialogues. Anand is planning to answer the questions primarily at the end of the session, but feel free to add them to the Q&A tab as they arise. Now let's enjoy the presentation.
Let's get to the topic today, reimagining test automation with AI. Enough has been spoken about me. I'm not going to do that anymore. Just pointing you to my LinkedIn and Twitter, or X as we now say. Please do get in touch with me for follow-up conversations. I would love to do that. Now, I'm going to take you through a journey of where test automation has been and where I see the future to be. And let's start off with a nice cooling waterfall, because that's how at least I started my career in software testing. For those who do not know what waterfall methodology is, it just makes me feel old. But it has been a very important part of how software development was done. Predominantly various different stages, well-defined stages, and very defined, focused work happening in those stages. Unfortunately, what it also meant, it is going to take a long time to get software delivery done. And the way things were structured, pretty much it meant throw over the wall kind of approach. A lot of pros and cons, but it got a lot of good software out for users back in the days as well. After a long time in waterfall, we moved into the agile and extreme programming space, where we got the values of how to deliver software quickly for our users and get feedback from them to iterate over what new features and capabilities we can build into the system, into the product for their usage. So the cycle has, the stages of your SDLC remain pretty much the same, but it is really shortened and it's much more collaborative way of working now. The key aspect of this is it keeps repeating, where you have sprint over sprint or iteration over iteration of very quick releases happening to production to your users. So they can get value of your product, you can get feedback how your product is working, and you can continue building value on top of that. To take it to the next level, we also had continuous delivery. So how can you take this aspect of doing quick releases, but what are the mechanics of getting feedback from your users, how well your product is working or not, and what is not working well, what is working well, incorporating that into your requirement cycle so that you can iterate over this. So the agile way of working, continuous delivery, they go very well hand in hand together because the thought process is pretty much very similar. Now, what this means though, from a testing perspective, it would be very difficult to imagine anyone not working in some form of agile in their organizations right now. Which means as testers, we need to be thinking how to best contribute and ensure the product quality is of the highest level in our processes, practices, tooling, in our way of working. So from agile testing perspective, to become a little bit more explicit, if you start off on a new project, the first iteration or sprint zero is where you sort of understand what is going to be your first set of requirements, your user stories. And you also start thinking about, based on the type of product, what type of automation do I need to have? You strategize on that. You start building your base framework or getting your tooling in place. That is your groundwork that is being done in iteration zero. As you move to the next iteration, you've also started now working on testing and automating those user stories that are being implemented in that iteration, which of course follows the iteration planning meeting. But you are also diverted or distracted because you need to analyze what requirements are coming up in the next iteration or the next sprint. And this cycle continues as you move on from iteration 2 onwards. You are taking more on your shoulders. You are now doing a demo of what has happened in the past iteration. You are doing a demo of that. You are doing an iteration planning meeting. You might have some leftovers from the past iteration stories. You're trying to finish that off. The current iteration stories are coming into play in development. You need to start testing on those. You need to start doing automation. And of course, you need to analyze the stories of your next iteration, your next sprint. And this cycle continues, sprint over sprint, iteration over iteration. Now, what becomes very important from agile and extreme programming thought process is the concept of automation pyramid, where we are saying, okay, what are the different types of automation that can be done? It is not just UI automation or end-to-end automation. There are various different types of automation which has different value. Each type is very important, of course, as applicable for the product under test, but you could be contributing to various different layers of this automation pyramid. In most cases, in large products, I have seen the system test or end-to-end test, workflow test, acceptance test, they are done by testers. The lower layers of the pyramid, which are more technology focused, the contract test, component test, API test, unit test, these are done by our developers. Of course, it's great if some role is taking more responsibility than the others, but reality is complex, software is complex, it is huge, and one role cannot really do everything. So you need specialists at different parts to collaborate and work together to get the best value out. But this aspect of working in a sprint model or iteration model and doing so many different activities is very complex. It can get pretty stressful for the kind of changes that keep happening on a sprint by sprint basis. Now, this is where we are, right? This is how agile testing also works. Nothing very new in this. But the automation approach that we follow, unfortunately, has not really evolved too much. And let's take an example of what does the software testing lifecycle mean when you compare it with waterfall versus agile. In this particular case, your test design, you do that in waterfall as well as do that in agile. But in case of agile, you're repeating this for every sprint. That means you need to think about test maintenance, test designing, every sprint. It's not just one thing done and dusted and you can focus on the next thing. This is going to happen sprint over sprint. And that could make it a burden. When it comes to test implementation, automation implementation, again, you would do that in waterfall as well as in agile. But again, talking about the test automation pyramid, there's a lot of type of automation, which again needs to be repeated. You need to keep enhancing your code base for every sprint based on the changes that are happening in agile, which could again make it quite a burden on the team. What good is a test if you don't have proper validations? And again, automation means there needs to be validation. But when you're doing this in agile over and over again, for a constantly evolving product, your automation maintenance efforts can be quite high. When you run the test, you need to analyze and maintain the results. And because your tests are changing so often, your product is changing so often, which means your analysis cycle is also going to need more time to think about what is really happening with your product. And last bit is scaling your execution. Your product is not used just on one device or one browser. It is going to be used by your users across any type of browser or device that is available. And that means your scale validation, if your product works correctly across all of these, in waterfall might actually be easier because you've got a focused testing cycle. In agile, you have to keep repeating the scaling aspect every sprint to make sure everything is fine. And that scale again can become quite a burden in agile. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a huge proponent of agile, and I think it brings tremendous value. The challenge I'm trying to highlight over here is automation in agile teams is challenging. It is not as easy as we think it is, and it needs a much more focused and better effort. So what is next? We've got various different types of frameworks and tools from automation perspective. What is next? Well, luckily, we are at the future of testing or future of test automation. What can be the future? How can automation be made easier to overcome the challenges that we have thought about, that we have discussed in your software testing life cycle? And the key to this is your AI-powered automation. AI is not just a buzzword anymore. It is a reality. It can add a lot of value to what you're doing, to how you're approaching things. Now, to show you the power of AI, enough of slides, let's see a demo. In this demo, I'm going to do live demos. Aha. I'm going to show you a couple of examples quickly. I have a simple Selenium Java-based automation going on right now. It's an e-commerce application that I'm testing. A simple test about adding a product to cart. The test completes very quickly. But now, if I want to run this test against a new build, because a new user story is done, I'm getting a new deployment happening, and hey, the test failed. What happened over here? Let's look at it. It had just passed, but it failed now, and it failed because, whoa, our most beloved no such element exception. Now, this is not a problem of the tool. My product has changed. It is saying the locator is not available anymore. Or it could be my application is slow in responding and rendering, which meant the test is not tuned to that performance and it did not find the element it needed to interact with. Hence, the test failed. Now, that's no good. The users are going to use your application to search for products, add the product to cart, and make a purchase. Do they really care about locators? I don't think so. So why should our automation care about that? So let me show you a different example of how you could actually make your automation more intelligent. Now the test is running, but in this case, the browser is not even going to launch on my machine because I'm using a different mechanics, a different way of executing these tests. These tests are using Applitools Visual AI integrated as part of it. And what this means is when the test is running, I don't see the browser launch in this case, but I see the results have started coming into the Applitools dashboard. This is a test running right now. I am in India, so that's why it's 8:48 p.m. The test was supposed to run on only one browser, but what I'm seeing over here is that the test is actually running on 3 different browsers. It is running on the Applitools execution cloud, and the test has completed, but it is unresolved. It is saying unresolved because Applitools says any difference that is found as part of execution, we don't know if that difference is because of a bug in your product or your test is outdated in context of your product, because your product is constantly evolving, right? Your test could very easily be outdated. So Applitools cannot take a decision if the difference found is because of a product issue or the test issue because it is out of sync of with the product. So what this means is now I'll be able to click on any of these test results and see in this particular case, I had 3 tests. 2 of these seem to be passed because it is green, and 1 has a difference found. Let's inspect what this really means. On the left-hand side, when I clicked on the thumbnail, I have the baseline. On the right-hand side, I have the checkpoint or the screen that was captured when the test ran. And my test was coded with saying that because I have got a lot of dynamic aspects or dynamic content on the page, I want to use different types of AI algorithms to validate if everything is working fine. So my filter criteria on the left-hand side could be dynamic based on the type of product, or the quantities could change. So I'm using a layout algorithm which says I don't care about the content differences. As long as the structure is the same, everything is good. In case of a specific product, maybe I have this product is going to be always there. I have control over that data, and everything should be as expected for that particular region. That's why I'm using strict. So strict is anything different to the human eyes, highlight that as a difference to me. And the key thing to remember here is that this is not using pixel comparison. Pixel comparison doesn't work even for static content. One pixel difference can give you false positives. But AI-based algorithms can give you that control to say, here are the differences based on what the user can see, and hence that is an important difference reported to you, and you can take a decision on that. So in this particular case, I have got a combination of regions selected to do the validation in the best possible way. And based on that, everything is fine. There is no difference found. I go to the next screen. Over here as well, everything seems to be fine because there is no difference reported. I go to the third screen. In this case, because it's a sample test, the screen is the same, but I'm using a different algorithm for comparison. If I zoom in, you see that the default text that is there in search box is different. And now that could be a bug in the product, or that could be a new functionality of your product that the text has changed. So the user is going to see different information. But now this is a decision that you need to take because you are part of the team, and you can decide if this is a product issue or a test issue. And accordingly, you need to update that. Now, some more insights that you can get is if you enable root cause analysis, you can click on the difference and see the differences that are there in the DOM and CSS, why this particular issue was highlighted. So it makes it easier for your developers to take decisions on this. In fact, I've seen developers who are the ones taking a look at these results because they are shifting left. They are taking more ownership of quality. They are going to take a look at the results, take decisions on those, update the product because a defect was found, or fix the test because a test needs to be evolved, and accordingly fix the issue. If this is a defect, I could report this as a defect in my defect management tool. Content, if I can spell correct, is incorrect, and I can create a defect in my defect management tool automatically. Okay, so that is the power of AI using algorithms that you can programmatically add in your test execution. You can get the validations over here, and a simple click of button to say thumbs up means I want to update my baseline. Thumbs down means I'm failing the test because there was a defect found. Takes decisions on what is happening. But this is not the only thing that was very interesting over here. Remember I said the test failed on local. We saw that no such element found, but the test passed when it ran in Applitools. I know it passed because it took all the screenshots that were required by it, and I was able to compare using that. So I know the test completed. But how come the test failed when I was running it on local browser? How did it pass when I was running it in the Applitools execution cloud? The reason is this execution cloud has got self-healing capabilities. When you run the test in the execution cloud and your test requires certain locators which are not there anymore, Applitools will try to find out, is there any alternate locator that you can use instead to take a decision on your test and continue with the execution. And in this case, you see the magic wand over here, which indicates that yes, the test ran on the execution cloud and it was self-healed. When I click on this, I see the original locator that was there in my test and the new locator that was used for execution, and the test completed. So with self-healing capabilities, we are and visual AI, we are able to focus on the things that matter to the user. You're not focused on locators anymore, and that adds a huge value to your execution. Also, we are able to use the ultra-fast grid, which means though I ran the test on only one browser on my local, in the execution cloud as well, it ran on only one browser, but we were able to scale that execution using the ultra-fast grid. In my case, I have given it 3 different browser combinations where I want to do the validations, and automatically I see the results of validations from all of these over here. The test ran only once, but the visual validations were done for all the different browsers automatically. With AI capabilities, if I say this is actually a defect, I want to fail the test, you will see over here automatically Applitools is going to apply that decision to the rest of the test and take a decision accordingly for you. You do not have to go through all your different screens where the same problem exists and repeat your decisions on those. It saves you a lot of time. There's a saying, finding a needle in the haystack is difficult, and absolutely true. Finding issues in your product is very difficult. It is challenging because your products are complex. But what Applitools AI can do for you is automatically find those needles for you in the haystack, present them to you, and you take a decision which of those needles were expected, which are unexpected. You have the power in your hands to take the decision based on the context of your application. Applitools cannot take that decision for you. Okay. Now, with this execution cloud, when you ran the tests over here, you will also be able to download the video of the execution, the WebDriver logs, console logs, and so on. And hence, you'll be able to get much more rich information what is going on with your application. If accessibility is important, you will also get contrast advisor validations reported from Applitools as part of your test execution automatically. And what that would mean is based on level AA, AAA, and WCAG level 2.0, 2.1, you will be able to see the violation issues that exist in your product from a contrast perspective to see how your product is behaving over there. Okay, so if I click on any of these, I'll select accessibility. Okay, some network latency issues. Oh, there we go. And over here, you will see the highlighted boxes where you'll be able to see actual contrast versus expected. Now, this is an indication for you, so you can again focus on things that matter. Applitools is not saying this is a problem. It is just reporting where the issues are. And you take a decision how to make your product quality better. Now, what does this really mean? Why is this demo important? If you think about it, I'm going to go to code now. I'm showing you Java-based code, Selenium Java-based code. This applies to any different type of automation that you're doing, whether it is scripted or non-scripted way of automating. Your typical automation cycle is, I have a set of test cases that someone has given to me or I have identified. Based on that, I'm going to implement my automated test. And in this particular case, the test is actually very simple. I go to a particular site, I click on a product, and from that click, I'm going to assert after adding the product to cart if the cart has updated or not. So what you see over here is, though this is not a proper page object pattern or any pattern based implementation, it's a test implemented completely in the test block itself. But you are seeing over here a lot of this code requires locators. I've got locators all over the place. I'm writing a lot of assertions, but the assertions are very basic assertions. I'm seeing over here only if the product name is correct. I'm seeing if the shoe name is correct based on what I have selected. I'm seeing if I add the product to cart, is my cart updated? But your product is much more complex than that. But your test is not doing justice to the complexity of your product. Instead, if you use Applitools, it's the same test, but now what I have over here is the assertions have gone away, and I'm using a combination of AI algorithms or direct AI algorithms, as in the last example, where I'm saying I'm telling Applitools, you do the validation for me. I don't care. I don't want to write the assertions. I'm just going to use my test to do the interactions with the product, to enter information or get information back as required to proceed with the navigation and the scenario implementation. But all the validations, I'm using Applitools for this. And hence, because of this, we see the test failed over here when I ran it last. Even though I ran it in the execution cloud, the test failed because it had visual differences found. And the visual differences also, you can see the results of all the executions for all the different browsers over here with the link to the dashboard. How many validations were there, how many passed, how many failed, how many were new, how many were not captured, any accessibility issues or contrast advisor issues found, all of that can be retrieved and shown to the user over here. And as a framework, it is your responsibility how to take that and do assertions on it or update your own custom reports based on the information presented. But now, with this test that we ran, we saw that we are now able to cover the full screen validation. I'm not just talking about is this particular one product there or the product name exists or if my cart has got updated or not. I'm actually validating the full screen over here. And when I validate this full screen, it has a lot of value because what this automatically means, my test, a simple add to cart test is now validating much more functionality of my product automatically. I do not need more tests over here implemented to go through the similar set of screens or the same screens focused on different parts of the functionality and doing the validations over there. And that too, you would not be able to validate all the different possibilities that can happen anyway, like changes of color, change of layout, missing images, or so on. It is very difficult to capture those and validate those using standard automation tools. And that can become a huge challenge. So this is a very important thought process now that we need to think about. If simply integrating Applitools Visual AI in your automation can ease a lot of pain, and that integration is also extremely easy. I'm using a Gradle build file over here. All I'm saying over here is I want to use the Applitools SDK. Applitools SDK actually has Selenium or APM as part of it, depending on the SDK. But I wanted to use a different version of Selenium for some specific reason. That's why I'm doing this as a different way. Otherwise, I didn't really need this. I could have just, included the dependency like this, and I automatically get Selenium. So my dependencies are also getting cleaned up. I do not need multiple versions of those. Now, with this integration, my test implementation is exactly the same. But what I'm doing, I'm removing the assertions, adding visual validations over here. And second, because I'm doing visual validations, I can reduce the number of tests as well, because I don't need tests going through the same screens for the similar context and doing validations again separately. It is not going to add any value. So there's a very, I've heard this many times in the past. To reduce bugs in your product, you delete product code. You have less code in place, you'll be able to have reduce the number of defects. Test automation is also code. If you write less code, you'll be able to make your test more stable. Why so? Because I don't need as many number of locators to do all the validation that my screens require. AI is going to take care of the full screen validation for me, and I don't need to worry about that anymore. The only case when I will need locators is if I want specific regions to be validated using different algorithms. Otherwise, simply a call to eyes.check window is going to take care of the full screen validation for me automatically. That is the power of AI. So what does this mean? Using Applitools Visual AI, you'll be able to optimize your test case design. You can get higher test coverage by writing less code and automating fewer tests. Less tests, more coverage. Seems like a win-win situation to me. When it comes to implementing your tests, writing your tests itself, right? It is easier and faster to write these tests because now you don't need as many locators. You don't need to run the test multiple times because you've got so many locators. You don't have to write so many assertions, and you don't have to run it as many times to ensure each assertion is being captured well, is doing the job it is required to do. You can integrate Applitools with any automation tool. You don't have to change your automation tool to get the power of AI in your automation. The validation aspect is again very important, right? The AI-based validation, the AI algorithms, we spoke about strict and layout. There is also ignore, there is ignore colors. You can use a combination of these algorithms to get your functional and visual validation in place automatically without writing extra code
4 for each validation that is there.
for each validation that is there. A very important point to keep in mind whenever you're doing visual validation is supporting the dynamic content. Products are going to have dynamic data, dynamic content. It is going to be personalized. It is going to have different A/B experiments. That means your experience is going to change in your application. You need a validation tool that will support your product needs and work with dynamic data as well. Applitools also has capability to do A/B testing validation. So that also helps in the dynamic aspect of your application and does the validations automatically. And the key thing is the tool supports any different type of product, web, mobile web, Android, iOS, desktop applications, PDFs, images, does not matter. Whatever is seen on the screen, as long as you can take a screenshot, if Applitools does not have a SDK, it can do AI-based validation for you. That's a huge power you can get in your automation for any tool that you're using. The analysis and maintenance is again a very key aspect. You don't want to spend time finding all the issues that might exist in your product. With Applitools, if there are any differences reported, then you go to the dashboard, Applitools dashboard, and you focus only on the tests that have differences reported. You don't need to look at tests which are passing because that is working as expected as per your choice of algorithms. So analysis and maintenance becomes very important. You can focus on differences that matter. You can take quick decisions about bugs and baselines, whether to update it or not. And also, you know your product quality immediately across all the different browsers and devices, which also brings us to the scaling and execution part. The AI-based execution, AI-based cross-browser testing using ultra-fast grid allows seamless scaling for you, and that is going to make it very easy. You don't have to wait till the end to figure out how your application renders in different browsers and devices. You don't have to run the test n number of times on each of those platforms just to see if everything is working fine. Ultra fast grid with the self-healing capability of execution cloud can make your test more stable while getting you feedback from all the different types of browsers and devices that your product supports. And that can be a huge value add for any team that is doing automation. And you can very easily cover up on your automation backlog with this approach. Is that all though? Not really. There's also something very interesting coming very soon, and you will be hearing more about it in the very near future, and that is autonomous testing from Applitools. What we spoke about right now is writing your own scripts, coming up with your own test cases and adding AI power to it. But with autonomous testing, that job will also get much, much more easier for you. Tests will be identified and created for you, and you will be able to have an influence in updating it, evolving it, tweaking it, making it more contextual to your product. Autonomous testing will be the next game changer that is coming up very soon. So let's summarize now. We spoke about the software test lifecycle, but Applitools AI can really give you that edge and take you to the next cusp of evolution of your automation journey, where you can truly scale your automation for the fast needs of CI and CD and get feedback from automation on your product quality. Adding visual AI in each and every step of your SDLC is enabled by Applitools. Do take a look at that. The next thing that is important, what we spoke about is the tooling. But a very important aspect is for us as humans to evolve as well. You cannot take the same approach that we took for waterfall and apply it to agile. It is creating a big mess. We saw some examples earlier today. We need to evolve this thought process. We need to think about what will be a better test strategy, quality strategy, automation strategy. Each three are different. Quality strategy is for the product. Testing strategy is more specifically for the test team in that sense. And automation is how you're going to do automation. But it does not really say what layer of automation we are talking about. What is your overall automation strategy? That needs to evolve. You cannot think of the same way of thinking of test cases and automating that as in the past. Tools have evolved. You need to leverage AI and get the power of the tools to make it easier for you and get more value for your team. Last thing, human mind is essential. AI is not replacing humans, hopefully not yet. But if we as humans evolve, we can leverage these tools in a better way and make our testing more productive, more optimized, and more fun while learning along the way about the new tools and technologies that are coming up. I hope this gave you some interesting insights into how AI can really help in getting your automation to the next level. I hope we have some time for questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Anand. That was a great presentation.
That was
So,
fun. Live demos are always fun.
yeah, yes. So I think the audience would have learned something, and let's see what questions they have for us. I'll try to bring up some questions here. A question from Alejandro: how does the validation work with single-page application that change behaviors based on API calls?
Great question, Alejandro. So, Applitools will let you validate whatever is there on the screen. Now, if you have a single page application and the context changes based on what the user is doing, you would simply do multiple validations whenever such interactions happen with your application. So, though it's a single page application, at different points in time, based on your interactions, you will do multiple validations on your application, and Applitools will be able to give you the results accordingly. If you need more information or you have a more specific question, please do reach out to me directly and we can get into a quick call and I can demonstrate how that would work.
Yep. Another question from Aiden Boyd. So, can ICE deal with parameterized data? That is, the test creates some random data at runtime, and I want to validate that this data is shown in a particular region of the page.
Yeah, so couple of points over here. This is again a very important question. We are doing visual validation. So whatever is seen on the screen is what is going to get compared by Applitools. Now, how Applitools does the comparison? It is based on a choice of AI algorithms that you as a team member would select to say how I want the comparison to happen. Now, if your data is static, then my recommendation is go with the strict algorithm, which is going to tell you anything that is different on the screen. Applitools will highlight that as a difference for you. But if you have dynamic data, randomized data, then in that case, you would use the layout algorithm, which says, I don't care about the data, but there should be some data in place over there. The structure of my screen, structure of my page should remain consistent as with the baseline, but the data itself can change. Now, in most cases, you would not use just one algorithm in isolation. You would use a combination of these algorithms, as I showed earlier in the example, where you would select for randomized data or dynamic data, you would use the layout algorithm. For the static content that exists on the screen, you would use the strict algorithm. So combination of these algorithms will give you the maximum value for your application and for your testing.
A question from UD. How can I integrate Applitools ICE with APM for our mobile automation tests?
It is actually extremely simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put out a link in the chat for our tutorials page. The link is for APM Java, but if you just go to the tutorials page itself, you will see all the different tutorials that we have. It will give you step-by-step instructions how you can integrate Applitools in various different automation tools, APM being one of them, in the list of SDKs that we have. It's a very straightforward integration.
Daniel from Singapore, he's saying get ICE works when executed on local machine instead of cloud.
Yeah, so getIce is actually my helper method in the framework that I showed. That is actually a ICE instance, an instance of the ICE object from Applitools that is used to do visual validation. So getIce is just a helper method that I have. It's an instance of the Applitools ICE object. And that will work regardless where your test is running on local machine, in your CI or the execution cloud.
Another question from Alejandro again. So, can this be integrated with CI/CD tools like GitHub Actions, especially for new test or partial pass test?
Absolutely. It does not matter to Applitools where you are running the test. So, my suggestion always is to teams get your basic test implemented using any automation tool without any visual validation in there and run the test. Make sure your test is running correctly. So, for example, as in the earlier case, if you're using APM, implement your APM test, make sure the test runs seamlessly without any problem on your local machine or in your CI infrastructure. That means your functional interaction is working correctly using the automation tool. Once that part is done, you're simply going to add the validations using Applitools, and that's about it. Your test continues running whichever way it was running earlier. Applitools is not going to change that. So even if you're running it using GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps, Circle CI, Jenkins, any CI tool that you have, it does not matter. Applitools will continue to work and do the validations for you from there.
Can I do mobile app screen comparison?
Absolutely. Applitools works with desktop browsers, mobile browsers, native applications, Android, iOS, desktop applications, as well as images, standalone images, or PDF documents as well. In fact, you could also use Applitools for mainframe automation for that matter, right? There are tools that will allow you to do automation on mainframes. As long as those tools can take a screenshot, you can use the images SDK from Applitools and do the visual validation of that application as well.
Question from Monica. Does Applitools come under low code or no code solution category? Looks like good coding skills are needed.
Great question. It depends what automation tool you're using, Monica. So, for example, if you're using any standard automation tool, Selenium, APM, or the commercial tools as well, right? You need automation skills for using those tools or those frameworks. Once you have your test implemented, you're going to use Applitools to do the validations for you. So the automation tool still remains the same, what you are using as standard. You need those skills only. To use Applitools, you do not need any additional skills. You just need to know what APIs to use from Applitools and call that in your existing automation. So now that is one part of the question. You don't need any extra additional skills to use Applitools. The AI algorithms are already trained for this. Now, the way Applitools works is it reduces a lot of code from your existing implementation because you don't need to write your own assertions. Applitools is going to do the full page validations for you out of the box. So it is helping you get to less code. I wouldn't say no code. It is helping you get to less code in your tests while increasing the test coverage and getting your test implementation faster and your execution faster, all using AI technology, right? So it is not no code. It is reducing the code that you have in your existing scripts to make that happen. That is one part. Second, we do have other products like Preflight, which is a no-code solution where you can use browser extensions to automate your scripts, and it has visual validation using eyes embedded as part of it. So you will be able to use a no-code solution with visual validation as well to do that. Okay, so Applitools can help in both regards. Scripted automation, reduce the code. In codeless solutions as well, you can get visual validation. And in the future, autonomous testing is going to make life even more easier. So that gets even less code than before. There's also a related question, sorry, Swaroop, around can it be integrated with Tosca, which is a no-code solution of sorts, right? It's a different way of recording. So yes, Applitools can be integrated with that as well.
Great. I think we can take two more questions. How does Applitools handle PDF verification with multiple pages? How to get the baseline images in that case?
Nitin, great question. So basically, Applitools, so it's a two-part question, right? PDF documents can have multiple pages. When you upload a PDF document to Applitools, each page of the PDF document will be considered as a separate image and a comparison will happen accordingly. Okay. So if a PDF document has got 10 pages, you will see one test with 10 images as part of it, and the validation will happen accordingly. The second part of your question, how do you get the baseline in the first place itself, right? That is common across whatever type of validations you're doing, whether PDF, web, mobile, native, or desktop, anything, right? It is the first time you run the test, Applitools will capture that information and save it as a baseline automatically for you. You can, of course, override that behavior to manually approve the first test as a baseline. But that is how the baseline itself is captured. So again, reach out to us and we'll be happy to show you with more specific examples how that works. But the first time you run the test, baseline is created. For subsequent test runs, the validation will happen with the baseline that was saved last time.
Can ICE be used in the air-gapped environment?
Air-gapped environment, that's a new one, Clarence. I'm sorry, I don't really understand what you mean by air-gapped environment. Could you expand further? Swaroop, I don't know if you have time for Clarence to respond.
Yep.
Otherwise, we could reach out separately and get more information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Sorry, Clarence, I'm not understanding what air-gapped environment means. We'll connect with you separately to understand more.
So another one from Alejandro here. Can screenshot validation do any self-healing, given there is no page information sent for PDF and alike?
Okay. It's important to understand what the current self-healing capability support is. Right now, the execution cloud with self-healing supports only web applications. Okay. For images, PDF documents, native applications, the execution cloud with self-healing is not yet available. Okay. So Alejandro, sending images to execution cloud will not work with self-healing. But if you're doing web-based automation, then over there it will be possible.
Okay, we'll pick one last question. Let me just finish this out. Yep. Is there a provision to track automation execution metrics?
Automation execution metrics. So now Applitools does have interesting dashboards and insights capability into what execution is happening for your team or for the product. That is based on tests that are executing using Applitools. And there is some trend information and metrics that will be available from that. If there is anything more or specific that you're looking at, again, please do reach out to us or Swaroop, if we can just reach out to them to understand more, we can provide more information accordingly.
Sure. I think those were the questions for the day. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thank you, Anand, for the great presentation. And as mentioned earlier, you will all receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording and the session materials, including all the resources shared today. You can use AI today by using Applitools to test web apps, mobile apps, desktops, apps, PDFs, screenshots, and more. Applitools offers SDKs that support several popular testing frameworks in multiple languages. Click the link in the Resources tab to open your free account today. And if you'd like to see a personalized demonstration of visual AI in action, you can request a demo by clicking one of the links that is going to be put in the chat by Pam or in the Resources tab. Again, thank you all for joining today.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.